and also a lecturer in Birzeit University since 1986. He also published works included Palestinians and historiography of the war 1948 war, Nakba, and the Arab and the Palestinian narratives of the 1948 war, the Israeli association policy in the Aqsa Intifada and Zionist massacre. And also, there is another information which is very important, at least for me. He is my supervisor in the master degree. Our third expert speaker, Mr. Hani al-Masri. Hani al-Masri is the Director General of Masarat, the Palestinian Center for Policy Research and Strategy Studies. He also served as policy advisor for Al-Shabaka. He also founded and was director general of the Palestinian Media Research and Studies Center, Bada'il. Mr. Hani al-Masri published hundreds of articles in different newspapers and journals. He also was one of the commission of dialogue held in Cairo in 2009 and member of the board of trustees of the Yasser Arafat Foundation. Mr. Hani al-Masri and Masarat, I think, organized tens or more than 50 workshop and lecture meetings about the Palestinian national movement and also the reconciliation and the Palestinian division in the last 10 or 13 years. So I will not lose your time. So we will start with Dr. Wael Abdul Al, and he will talk about the situation in Gaza, 13 years of siege, division, and isolation. Dr. Wael, welcome.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the organizers and the invitation, especially to Sami and Fadi and the rest of the team. Actually, the conference organizers selected a different title for my presentation. They call it The View from Gaza. And actually, it's more like non-academic presentation. When I talk about the view from Gaza, it's not supposed to be at the moment an academic presentation, and this is what I will do. It's a different approach when I talk about Gaza at the moment. I have presentation here. When we talk about Gaza, we are talking about a real disaster in every sense and at all levels. When we talk about Gaza, we talk about the worst, probably humanitarian crisis in the history of Gaza. And this is, I'm not exaggerating when I say that. We also have a political disaster, which is the Palestinian Division. Since 13 years, the Palestinians are divided into two parts, not only politically, but even socially as well. So it's for us and for every Palestinian, this is really, really big problem, and we have to do our best to end this plight for our people in Gaza and for the future of the Palestinian issue in general. Very important when we talk about Gaza, we talk about important transition happened last 13 years after the victory of Hamas in the 2006 elections. This was the turning point for Gaza, especially in terms of siege and blockade opposed by Israel on the Palestinian people in Gaza. This was the starting point of the Palestinian people plight in Gaza. There were collapse in all sectors, economy and humanitarian condition in Gaza after the victory of Hamas, which was isolated politically by the international community and some of the regional countries. In 2007, there was another important event, which is the Palestinian Division after long fight between Hamas and Fatah, and this deepening the division, as all attempts to end this situation failed until now. There was so many attempts to end the Palestinian division, lots of agreements held between Hamas and Fatah under the sponsorship of different countries, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, etc. All were failed, unfortunately. In 2009, it's very essential to mention that it was the rise of the Israeli extreme right wing led by Benjamin Netanyahu. And this Israeli right wing was a strong government that intended to end the Oslo Agreement and the solution of two states. And this actually, the Israeli government approached a policy of deepening the separation between Gaza and West Bank, and it's going on until now, and they are working hard to do that. In 2013, the coup in Egypt, the military coup in Egypt, it was like really important important transition for Gaza, especially after this coup. Gaza, that ruled by Hamas, has very bad relationship in that time with Egypt, and the siege from both sides, the Israeli and Egyptian, were extremely hard. They closed the tunnel, they closed the Rafah crossing for a very long time, and the tunnels, as far as you know, probably was like a solution for the Palestinians in Gaza, that they can get some of their needs through Egypt. The last transformation, and it's very significant, is the rise of Trump. Trump administration is in line with the Israeli right-wing government in their policies, and they are intended to deepening the separation between Gaza and West Bank politically, and now they are not talking about the two-state solution anymore, and they consider Gaza would be the cornerstone of any future Palestinian entity. And they are doing that maybe with the century of the deal, we don't know. The humanitarian disaster in Gaza. When I came here to Istanbul recently, it was like, it took me probably 1.5 years to get out of Gaza, and then it took me 3 days to move from Rafah to Cairo. Between Rafah and Cairo, there is Rafah, the Egyptian Rafah, and Sheikh Zwayd, an Egyptian city, and then Al Arish, and afterwards the Suez Channel, and then Ismailia and Cairo. Usually, when we used to travel from Gaza through Sinai to Cairo, which is the only way that we can travel to connect the world, it took us like 4 or 5 hours usually, but now people spend like probably 5, 6, 7 days. It depends. You are lucky. I was lucky that it took me 3 days. Last week, some friend told me his wife spent 7 days in the desert between Al Arish and Bir Abed. In my journey, this wasn't like, I'm talking about case, by the way. I'm one of 2 million are living in Gaza who suffer from this issue, because we are like in probably the biggest open prison in the world. Literally, it's the biggest open prison in the world. So if you can see this map, this red area, there are from Rafah to Al Arish, there is 3 cities, and it's full of, there's very important note that this area is completely wiped out. It's Second World War area. There is no people, no life, no animals, no trees, nothing at all. And we don't know why is this happening? But there is a big question about the reasons that this zone has evacuated by the Egyptian authorities. This is just an example about our suffering in Gaza when we travel to the world. In Gaza, there are about 2 million people. 1.4 of them are registered in the United Nations as refugees. In this probably concentration camp, because when you are talking about 2 million living in 365 kilometers, you are talking about the most concentrated area in the world. So approximately 5,151 each kilometer square. There is 40% of the people have insecurity in food. 5% don't have water, like clean water to use. I'll show some statistics in the next slides. Here some needs per sector. About 1.1 million people in Gaza are in need for assistance regarding protection. They don't feel safe. And there is actually, it's very important issue. It's a psycho-social issue. People always just fear about the future. They fear about what will happen next, probably month or months, because every day they feel threatened by the Israeli occupation, especially when there is some clashes on the border, or the Israeli fighters like strike some sites in Gaza. People start to feel fear and just full of anxiety and fear, and then it's very important to mention that 1.6 million people in Gaza are in need for assistance regarding water and sanitation and hygiene service. We are talking about more than 70% of the people. 900,000 people are in need for assistance regarding health and nutrition. 500,000 people need assistance regarding education. The education system, I work at one of the academic institutions in Gaza. The education system is collapsing, literally. There is a huge problem. All Palestinian universities have financial crisis. All of the Palestinian schools have the need to reconstruct probably the building. We need more schools. more education institutions. 200,000 people are in need for assistance regarding shelter and non-food items. And these are, by the way, very scary facts and figures. And I got these figures from the OCHA report, the United Nations office, it's published on the internet. The electricity status, the availability of the average of the electricity availability in Gaza in 2018 is 6.6 hours per day. And imagine now, like great city like Istanbul has 1 hour without electricity. Everything will be like stopped. And in Gaza, there are hospitals, there are factories, there are like people need treatment for special devices, medical devices, and so on. So it's like it's horrible and scary. Food security. In 2018, 45% of the people are insecure in terms of food. And now there are lots of restrictions on the international organizations, the UN, the UNRWA, and recently we've seen like this American discourse talking about the UNRWA as a terrorist organization. Some of the extreme Zionist right wing in the America talking about this is the problem. The UNRWA is the core of the Palestinian problem, so we have to end this. Actually, most of the Palestinians in Gaza depend on the UNRWA assistance, especially in terms of food, education, and medical treatment. Economic situation is definitely the worst than ever before. 80% of the Gaza factories are nearly closed. Even we are talking about the private sector, which play main role in the Palestinian economy. In the West Bank, thing is different. Probably Dr. Hadi will talk about this later on. The losses in the agriculture sector after the last war in 2014 was $550 million, and we are talking about like poor farmers. We are not talking about big businesses in Gaza. So this is very big number. 34,500 acres were destroyed by the Israeli occupation, and also the water infrastructure for this sector is also demolished partly. The fishermen as well, Gaza and the sea, one of the economic sources is the fishing in Gaza, and there are so many restrictions by the Israeli occupation, and the average wage of income of these fishermen is $150, which is under the poverty line in Gaza. Unemployment is 52%, comparing with 44 in 2017, and this actually has huge impact on people, like social, psychosocial impact. People just feel hopeless, and especially those young graduate people who graduate. For example, I've heard statistics about the engineers in Gaza. From one of my friends work for the engineers union. They are talking about thousands of these engineers are unemployed, and these are actually, this layer in particular, they are very clever. I mean, they have very good education, they have I mean, if they are in a place like stable place, they would get a very good chance to work and for their future. And imagine these huge numbers in Gaza are unemployed, like, you know, staying home, and it's got very huge negative impact on them, especially psychologically. And that's why we see some people now trying to get out of Gaza, just immigration to Europe, to Turkey, to different places. Poverty rates, it's according to the report, the poverty rates exceeded 80%. 80% of the people in Gaza under the poverty line. It's just crazy. Casualties. This is the consequences of the not only the march of return protests. It's also for the escalation waves by the Israeli occupation over the 2018. We are talking about lots of people were killed and injured. About 12,844 people were injured. Here is statistics. It's very important to look at this number. The people who are targeting in their limbs, in their leg. Now there is a big number of those young people who lost their limbs. They are working with help of the others, and actually recently they had like a protest in Gaza just calling for their rights. And if you can see from the number, you would believe that the Israeli soldiers intended to do that to deliver the message for other people who think about participating in the demonstrations in the borders of Gaza. I just want to talk a little bit about the Palestinian tragedy of division. It's a real tragedy. Probably the Palestinian issue witnesses the worst or the most critical time since the Nakba in 1948. There are lots of challenges regarding this. Now we are talking about the media. There are lots of leaks here and there talking about the deal of the century, which lots of leaks as well says that Gaza would be the start of the Palestinian entity. We are not talking about a Palestinian state anymore. Even the two-state solution is gone, and now talking about like it's a suggestion that Gaza would be the cornerstone for the Palestinian self-ruling entity, let's say. So it's crucial for the Palestinians to face these challenges, to reunite, because without the Palestinian unity, they will not be able to fight the Israeli occupation. Even the regional environment is against Gaza and against Palestine. They are not happy. They are not happy with Abu Mazen or Hamas even. So without unity, they won't be able to face all of these challenges. Just to conclude, despite all of that, it's probably a dark view, but still we have some hope. And always Gaza is full of energy, full of hope, full of passion, and always Gaza surprises us as like this the Great of Britain march in Gaza was surprising. It's a very civilized way to express the Palestinian issue and the Palestinian rights. I would end with the quotation of Mahmoud Darwish, who said always about Gaza as well, it's neither death or suicide. It's Gaza's way of declaring that it deserves to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nikolai, for this interesting presentation. And now we will listen to Dr. Jawad about restraint. Restraint is really the battle field or the war field now between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Maybe Gaza is the military war field or battle field, but also there is another kind of war or battle between the Palestinians and Israelis in the restraint.
كان قبل الحرب.
Thank you.
First of all, many thanks to the organizers of this important gathering, especially the CIGA Center, and more particularly to Professor Sami Aryan. Thanks also to Turkey, people and government who embrace with kindness and concern the Palestinian cause since now few decades. We must not forget that only 1 century ago, Palestine, as part of Bilad al-Sham, which remained for 400 years, was under Ottoman rule, was separated by force from the Ottoman Empire by the same forces who are fighting against our people today. Yesterday, people were talking about the Nakba as a continuous phenomenon. But the Nakba for me, is mainly Arab and Muslim. Actually, the first nation who suffered from the Nakba was the Ottoman Empire, because the Zionist forces actually collaborated with Britain and with the United States and with other lobbies to separate, to divide, the Ottoman Empire. And since that time, not only Palestine was attacked and, let's say, suffered the Nakba, but we have not to forget that Damascus, Lebanon, Cairo, Baghdad, Tunisia, Sudan were also bombed by Israeli aeroplanes. I will talk about the West Bank, but I really, as it was clear on my abstract, I will tackle mainly the question of reconciliation and division within the Palestinians. I think there is something, let's say, which can be helpful for people who also tackle this subject without knowing the, let's say, the ultimate and the profound details. The ultimate goal of studying the past is to draw lessons and use it for confronting the present. The ultimate goal of political science is to predict the future and not explaining the present. In addition to resisting the occupation and fighting the rampant corruption, the division between Hamas movement and Fatah is the third most important concern of the Palestinians, especially on the occupied territories since 1960. What I will explain today is what I said exactly 11 years ago. Because of number of factors and circumstances, there was ever a real chance here for reconciliation between the two conflicting movements. This is a very sad and regrettable statement, because national unity, especially in the stage of a national liberation struggle, is a necessity for victory, and internal division is a factor and recipe of weakness and defeat. All colonial powers use divide and rule policy to maintain control over one subordinates or opponents by encouraging dissent between them thereby preventing them from uniting to face the same colonial power. In addition, it would be easier for pro-Palestinian forces, like in Turkey, to help if Palestinians are united. Division is confusing for these forces, not to mention that division is used by Israel as a pretext to evade serious negotiations by claiming the absence of a Palestinian leadership who represent all Palestinians. However, things are not determined by hope, by right and wrong, by good and bad, but by reality on the ground. Who are analyzing the division, ignoring a number of factors that perpetuate division and ignore some of important theoretical analysis tools, and top of them the political economy of the Palestinian Authority. Although Hamas and Fatah agree that the goal at this stage is to establish a Palestinian state in the West Bank and Gaza Strip with East Jerusalem as its capital, i.e. the occupied territories in 1967, they disagree on how to achieve this goal. Fatah leadership, represented by Abu Mazen, believe that this is the final goal of the Palestinian struggle, and that this will only be achieved through negotiations. Negotiations first, second, and third. Within this frame, Mahmoud Abbas rejected in the past any reconciliation with Hamas unless it accepted the roadmap and the condition imposed by Israel. Hamas leadership, by contrast, believes that only armed struggle can achieve this goal of independence and the creation of Palestinian state, since the road to negotiations is completely blocked and based on the experience of the PLO and Fatah, which will not bear any fruit at all. We have, an experience of 50 or 40 years of negotiations, of political struggle, which led to nowhere. This law, in this respect, the latest Israeli basic law, the nationality law of July 2018, came to boost Hamas' position, because this law closed the door to the option of negotiations, since it deliberately cancelled any opportunity for the establishment of a Palestinian state in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, which is considered an integral part of Eretz Israel, where the right to self-determination is exclusively a Jewish right. The second fundamental difference is the nature of international and regional alliances of both sides, which is very important also in the question of reconciliation and division. Hamas' strategic relations are with Turkey, Qatar, and Iran, while the PA is allied with Jordan, Egypt, the Gulf states, and the United States. These international and regional alliances play an influential role in perpetuating the division. The third factor hindering unity is the Israeli position, followed by the Americans, that reject reconciliation. Unfortunately, Israel is a determined fact in Palestinian politics. This is, we have to admit, the existence of a Palestinian body with two heads has been Israel's goal since mid-1970. Israel has realized that the most important achievement of the PLO after its creation in 1964 is the political and social reunification of a fragmented Palestinian people. So the objective was to divide this unity. For this reason, since 1977, Israel has worked in every way to establish a parallel body to the PLO, even though it knew that this body would be more radical than the PLO. This was also the reason behind the Israeli withdrawal from unilateral Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip without surrendering authority to the PA. Israel knew that in this case Hamas would win the power struggle in the Gaza Strip to seize power. So it is a strategic, within the Israeli philosophy of control is to have the Palestinian body with two heads, okay? The problem also lies in the fact that many observers who analyze the issue of division and reconciliation mistakenly adopt the paradigm that both sides constitute the two sides of a Palestinian national liberation movement. This is the problem. People think it's like in Algeria. We have now a situation where what I think Hamas represents the national liberation movement, and Fatah, at least for the moment, I'm not talking that it's the same will be in the future, but at least today, Fatah is dominated mainly by the Palestinian Authority. The fact that the PA leader, Mahmoud Abbas, is the president of the Palestinian Authority and the president of Fatah, makes that Fatah is going within the stream or the tendency and the road of the PA. And this is why, this is the problem even within Hamas leaders, who all these negotiations behave as if there are two antagonist parts of the Palestinian National Liberation Movement. It's not the case, at least for the moment. The other question is that most of people who analyze reconciliation and division, they ignore one theoretical tool, very important one. It's political economy of the Palestinian Authority. In the Arab world, unfortunately, in the Arab world, power means money, means wealth, means corruption. Those people who arrive to the power, since more than 25 years, they are happy with this power. They are happy. Power in the Palestinian Authority means that you can have the state land. It means that you can have good salaries, you can have cars, VIPs, and mainly they don't want to share it with anybody. This is a very important tool. Political economy is a very important tool. Okay, this is why I think this is what we have a lot of discussions, especially even with my friend Hamil Masri and with many people who tried their best to find a solution for this division. But my point of view from the start, it can't be. We can't arrive. So what I think it is very important to base our calculation about this fact. It's a very sad. It's not healthy, but this is the situation. The second thing is what it is. The second subject which I tackled today is there is a chance for a third intifada. Okay, this is always a question which are asked whenever there is, let's say, struggle, which is mainly now individual. We have a lot of individual acts of resistance, very heroic, but by the end, we don't have a collective movement, in my point of view, which will constitute the basis for a third intifada. The Palestinian Authority, especially during Fayyad, Mahmoud Fayyad, Salam Fayyad era, succeeded in creating many economic and political circumstances which really hindering the Palestinians from new, let's say, starting a new intifada. Most of the Palestinians today, the middle class, have debts to the banks. All people think about how just on the end of the month, okay, will fulfill their payments, their monthly payments. Not to mention what I mean, the question of تنسيق الأمني. I mean, this is تنسيق الأمني. When we use تنسيق أمني, it's first of all, I mean, security coordination. It's a false concept because security coordination, it means coordination on two ways. This is one way coordination. I mean, we provide the Israelis with a lot of information, but I don't know about a single case where, for example, Israeli security forces provide us with, let's say, any information about Israeli extremists, Israeli settlers who are going to attack. And our cities is really attacked every night. I mean, it's interesting to see Ramallah. I have to talk frankly here. I mean, when Ramallah, almost each 2 or 3 days will be entered by the Israeli battlers. And the moment they enter, nobody, I mean, because of the experience of the tunnel events in 1996, and also what followed, the role of the Palestinian security forces in the second intifada, a new restriction was imposed on these security forces. So we have, I mean, security coordination in which people who are activists, the activists, are followed in a daily basis. I mean, I just want to give one example. When the Israelis, I mean, I saw it myself, I was in El Manara, in the middle of El Manara in 2014, okay? When Israel attacked Gaza Strip, I mean, and people demonstrate in the middle of Al Manara, okay, the middle of Ramallah and El Bira town. I mean, you should really see how the security forces attacked the demonstrators. So how I have students at Birzeit University who were tortured. They were broken. I talked to them. They broke them. Okay. So in this case, I mean, it is. I see it's very, very difficult. Very, very difficult to let's say protect any third intifada, as a matter of fact. For, as I said, for economic reasons, especially the credit question and the let's say the very active role of surveillance by the Palestinian Authority toward the two. Just to conclude, the two subjects are related actually. The first one, the reconciliation and division, and the question of whether we will have a third intifada or not, are related together. And thanks.
Thank you so much, Professor Saleh, for this clear and deep ideas. Now we will move to Mr. Hani al-Basri, and he will talk about the dilemma of the Palestinian National Project, but also Mr. Hani is the maestro of the Palestinian NGOs' efforts for the Palestinian reconciliation for more than 10 years. Welcome, sir.
شكرا دكتور أحمد. مساء الخير. سأتحدث بالعربية.
Mr. Hani, there's not that Mr. Hani will speak in Arabic, but we will have direct translation, not from you, sorry, from his friend behind him, so near him. Thank you.
مرة أخرى مساء الخير. شكرا مركز سيجا، شكرا للدكتور سامي العريان على إتاحة هذه الفرصة لنا للمشاركة في هذا المؤتمر الهام.
Good day, and I would like to thank the CIGA Center and Dr. Sami Al-Aryan for the opportunity to speak with you today.
سأتحدث في ثلاثة عناوين. أول عنوان ما هو المشروع الوطني؟ ثاني عنوان معضلة المشروع الوطني بعد اتفاق أوسلو، وثالث عنوان ما العمل؟
I will speak on three topics. The first is what is a national project? Second, the crisis of the national project after Oslo, and thirdly, what is to be done.
إذا نزلنا الآن إلى إحدى المدن أو القرى أو المخيمات الفلسطينية داخل الوطن وخارجه وسألنا الفلسطيني في الشارع أو في الجامعة أو في أي مكان ما هو المشروع الوطني الفلسطيني، سنجد أن هناك اختلافات كبيرة ومتنوعة جدا حول ماهية المشروع الوطني.
If we were to go to a town or village or refugee camp within Palestine or outside it, and were to go to any ordinary Palestinian on the street or in a mosque or anywhere else and ask what is the Palestinian National Project, one would get numerous and contradictory responses to this question.
ولكن عندما كنا نسأل هذا السؤال بعد انطلاق الثورة الفلسطينية في عام 1965 وسألنا هذا السؤال سنسمع إجابات تكاد تكون مشتركة عند مختلف والغالبية العظمى من أفراد الشعب الفلسطيني.
But if we were to ask this question after the eruption of the Palestinian Revolution in 1965, we would get a consensus, an overwhelming consensus in response to the question, what is the Palestinian National Project?
مفترض أن المشروع الوطني يتحدد مرة واحدة وإلى الأبد.
The national project should be determined once and permanently.
يتغير عندما ينجز، أنك تضع مشروعا وطنيا آخر، ولكن إذا لم ينجز فهو يبقى المشروع الوطني.
And the national project should remain unchanged until it succeeds. After it succeeds, then one can begin speaking of an alternative project, but it has not succeeded yet.
المشروع الوطني الفلسطيني هو إنجاز الحقوق الوطنية والطبيعية والتاريخية والقانونية للشعب الفلسطيني، فهو شعب مشرد تعرض لعدوان استعماري استيطاني عنصري أدى إلى تأسيس إسرائيل على أرض وطنه، ما أدى إلى تشريده وخضوع من بقي منه إلى تمييز عنصري ومن ثم احتلال القسم الآخر.
The Palestinian National Project is reclaiming the Palestinian national rights that were usurped legally and concerns of its natural and historical and legal rights that were usurped by the establishment of a settler colonial state on its land.
طبعا بسبب موازين القوى وطبيعة المشروع الصهيوني فإن إنجاز المشروع الوطني الفلسطيني بحاجة إلى عملية تاريخية.
Given the imbalance of power, achieving the Palestinian National Project requires a long historical phase to be achieved.
يعني لا يمكن في الظروف التي كانت قائمة والتي هي قائمة الآن وأصبحت أسوأ أن يتحقق المشروع الوطني في ضربة واحدة أو في مرحلة واحدة.
And under the current circumstances, it's inconceivable that the Palestinian National Project can be achieved in a single process given the circumstances that the Palestinian people face.
والتدرج والمرحلية هذه سمة لا تميز الحركة الفلسطينية أو التاريخ الفلسطيني، وإنما تميز تاريخ الحركة البشرية بأسرها.
And the concept of achieving this project in stages or as parts of a whole is applicable not only to the Palestinian National Project, but indeed to any project throughout history.
وهذا ينقلني إلى الموضوع الثاني وهي معضلة المشروع الوطني الفلسطيني.
And this brings me to my second topic, which is the current dilemma of the Palestinian National Project.
معضلة المشروع الوطني بدأت قبل أوسلو عندما اعتقدت القيادة الفلسطينية أو أوساط نافذة منها أنها من أجل أن تقبل كممثل للفلسطينيين يجب أن تغير المشروع الوطني الفلسطيني.
And this crisis, in fact, predates the Oslo Agreement, when the Palestinian leadership adopted the view that if it changes the project, it will be able to achieve its objectives.
بدأت هذه المسيرة بعد حرب تشرين 1973.
And this process, in fact, began after the 1973 October War.
عندما انتشر بل ساد بين الفلسطينيين أن قطار التسوية ابتدأ وهو جارف، وأن من لا يركب في هذا القطار يعني يخسر كل شيء.
And this began with the view after the 1973 war that the train of a peace process had left the station, and that whoever does not get on this train will be left behind.
وهذا الأمر أدى إلى تغيير المشروع الوطني، وليس إبداء تكتيكات أو إبداء مرونة كانت يمكن أن تكون مفهومة، تم تغيير المشروع الوطني.
And this mentality led to a strategic change of the Palestinian National Project rather than an adaptation of tactics to achieve the original project.
مثلا بدأ الحديث عن إقامة سلطة وطنية على أي شبر يتم تحريره.
So, for example, discussions began on the establishment of the Palestinian National Authority on any part of Palestine that would be liberated.
ثم تم الحديث عن إمكانية تحقيق دولة فلسطينية، وفي البداية كان في حديث تحقق للمصير وعودة دولة فلسطينية عبر التسوية السياسية وعبر المفاوضات.
And then we began discussing the establishment of a Palestinian state based on a political resolution, meaning through negotiations.
وعندما بدأ أن هذا الأمر لا يكفي للدخول في قطار التسوية، انطلق مزيد من التنازلات.
And when it became clear that these changes were insufficient to permit the Palestinians to enter the train of a resolution, further concessions were offered.
وصولا إلى اتفاق أوسلو الذي كان بمثابة انتحار سياسي للقيادة الفلسطينية ومنظمة التحرير الفلسطيني.
And these concessions led eventually to the Oslo Agreement, which represented a political suicide by the Palestinian National Movement and its leadership.
أفهم كل الظروف الصعبة التي كانت تحيط بالقضية الفلسطينية، وخاصة بعد انهيار الاتحاد السوفيتي ومنظومته الاشتراكية، بعد انهيار التضامن العربي، بعد احتلال العراق للكويت والأحداث التي تلت ذلك. أفهم كل ذلك تماما.
I understand all the difficult circumstances that the Palestinian leadership was confronting during that period, such as the disintegration of the Soviet Union, the disintegration of Arab solidarity, the Kuwait crisis of 1990, and so on. I understand all of these circumstances.
ولكن هذا كله لا يفسر ولا يجعل مقبول أن نتنازل عن الحقوق الفلسطينية.
But none of this.
جوهر القضية الفلسطينية.
But none of this can help explain or rationalize the changes in the national project, in the sense that we sacrificed the core rights of this project.
طبعا هناك منطق خاطئ وراء هذه العملية، أننا يمكن من خلال الدخول في العملية نستطيع أن نغيرها، من خلال الدخول إلى أرض فلسطين يمكن أن نكسر القيود التي التزمنا وقيدتنا.
There was a false logic behind this, which proposed that by entering into this process, we would be able to redress the imbalances and to redirect the process towards a more acceptable outcome.
وهذا شأنه شأن الذي يدخل القفص ويعتقد أنه بعد أن يدخل القفص يمكن أن يكسر القضبان.
This is similar to a point of view that says by entering a cage you will be able to destroy the bars that make it a cage.
مهم أني أذكر أن اتفاق أوسلو تضمن التنازل رهيب جدا، ليس مجرد اعتراف بإسرائيل، الاعتراف بحق إسرائيل في الوجود.
And there was actually an astounding concession that the Palestinians had to pay in order to enter the Oslo process. It was not just the recognition of Israel, but it was the recognition of Israel's right to exist.
بيعتبروه بالعلاقات القانونية والدولية الاعتراف الذهبي، يعني أفضل أنواع الاعتراف.
It's in international law, international practice. It's considered the golden recognition of all the recognitions one could acquire. It's by far the best.
خطورة هذا الاعتراف أنه يضرب الرواية الفلسطينية التاريخية، يعني لأنه يقول أننا كنا على حق، إذا كان لإسرائيل الحق في الوجود، إذا نضالنا ضد الحركة الصهيونية كان من الأساس باطل.
And this recognition, in fact, punches a dagger straight at the heart of the Palestinian narrative. If Israel has the right to exist, then our entire struggle for rights has been wrong from the very outset.
يعني كان يمكن، وهذا خطأ أيضا ولكن أقل خطورة بكثير، الاعتراف بإسرائيل وليس بحقها في الوجود.
Even though it would have also been wrong, the Palestinians could, for example, have sufficed with a simple recognition of Israel rather than a recognition of its right to exist.
حتى ترومان الرئيس الأمريكي عندما اعترف بإسرائيل يعني حاولوا أن يدخلوا كلمة حق إسرائيل في الوجود وشطبها، وأنا عندي وثيقة دائما بحملها، يعني حتى يعني أكبر صديق لإقامة الدولة اليهودية رفض ذلك بتلك الفترة.
Even the American President Truman, when he was being lobbied in 1948 to recognize the new state of Israel, there were suggestions that he should recognize its right to exist, and he refused to do so.
بالتالي احنا الآن ننتقل إلى العنوان الثالث. إذا كان معضلة المشروع الوطني هي أنه تم التخلي عن المشروع الوطني، يعني وليس مجرد تغيير أو تبديل.
So turning now to the third aspect of my presentation, which is what is to be done. If the dilemma of the Palestinian National Project is that we have essentially renounced this national project, what do we do next?
أنا أحذر يعني حتى من وقائع يعني هذا المؤتمر، سمعت آراء كأنه الصراع بين أن نقبل حل دولتين أو دولة واحدة. ليس هنا الوردة، ليس هنا يجب أن نرقص.
I want to issue a note of caution, which is that much of the discussion in this conference seems to have been a debate between whether Palestinians should establish one state or two states. It's very premature to have this discussion.
هذا يذكرني بما ذكرت عن جبهة القبول وجبهة الرفض. كانوا يتقاتلون وأنا كنت جزء من هذا الجدال بين من يريد أن نصعد إلى القتال لكي نحصل على دولة فلسطينية على حدود 67، وبين من يرفض الصعود إلى القتال لأنه لا يريد دولة منمسك على جزء من فلسطين. في حين ما تبين بعد حوالي 50 عام لم نحصل لا على دولة فلسطينية لا على 67 ولا على غيرها. إذا ليس هذا هو الموضوع. الموضوع أنك أنت تأخذ بالحياة ما تستطيع أن تحصل عليه فعلا، ما أنت قوي للحصول عليه. وهذا يعني أننا يجب أن نفهم أن هذا العالم يفهم 3 لغات، ليس لغة واحدة مثل ما ذكر الدكتور خالد سويدان مع احترامي الشديد وتقديري الشديد له. هناك 3 لغات يجب أن نستخدمها وليس لغة واحدة.
And this reminds me of the previous debate in which I participated about whether Palestinians should join the peace process in order to establish a state on the borders of 1967, or should reject participating in this project in order to achieve a state in all of historic Palestine. And it's happened, as time has shown, we got neither the one or the other. The objective is to achieve what can be achieved and to have clear goals and mechanisms for achieving them. And with all due respect to Dr. Tarek Swidan, I would like to make the point that there are in fact 3 and not 1, 3 languages and not just 1 which are understood.
اللغة الأولى والأهم هي لغة القوة.
The first and most important language is that of force or power.
اللغة الثانية وهي مهمة ولكن ليس بأهمية الأولى هي لغة المصلحة.
The second language, which is important even if not as important as the first, is a language of interest.
اللغة الثالثة وهي أقلهم أهمية هي لغة العدالة والحرية والقانون.
And the third and least important of these 3 languages is the language of justice and freedom and law.
لا يجب أن نتجاهل نحن أي من هذه اللغات.
We should not ignore any of these languages.
خاصة أنه بالنسبة للغة الثالثة هي بيدنا ونستطيع أن نستخدمها بشكل فعال جدا، يعني في اعتراف بعدالة وتفوق القضية الفلسطينية.
And we especially shouldn't ignore the third of these languages because it's one we have in our hands and control, and it's active.
ولذلك يجب أن لا نكف عن استخدامها، وهذا أمر خاص ونحن ضعفاء. وفي هذا الوضع الذي نحن فيه إذا أعلنا الطلاق مع هذه اللغة سيسهل ذلك على إسرائيل القضاء على القضية الفلسطينية. يعني المسألة خطيرة أيضا، الخطورة مش بس بالتنازلات، يعني جهنم مبلطة أيضا بذوي النوايا الحسنة.
And particularly now that we are weak, it is not a language we should abandon, referring to justice and freedom and law. And if we were to no longer use this, it would assist Israel in effectively liquidating the Palestinian cause.
يعني الاستراتيجية هي كيف إتقان الانتقال من المكان الذي تقف فيه وتعترف في محدداته وخصائصه إلى المكان الذي ترغب بالوصول إليه. هذه هي الاستراتيجية.
Strategy is answering the question of how one gets from one's current situation while understanding the context and limitations of one's current reality to how one gets from there to where one aspires to be.
المعركة الآن تدور على ضم الضفة الغربية واستيطان الضفة الغربية، المعركة الآن، وعلى إبقاء قطاع غزة محاصر ومفصول. هذه هي المعركة الدائرة حاليا. في معارك كثيرة بس لكن هذه هي المعركة الجارية. هناك استعدادات إسرائيلية لضم جزء من الضفة الغربية، هناك استعدادات إسرائيلية لتهجير. قصة التهجير مش لازم نقيمها من الحسبان. في طبعا ممكن الواحد يحكي نص ساعة ليش هذا مطروح عند الإسرائيليين والكثافة السكانية واعتبارات يعني كثيرة، ليس فقط للضفة الغربية، أيضا حتى لداخل إسرائيل، لأن إسرائيل تريد أن تخطط لبعد عشرات السنين. إسرائيل كل 20 سنة تزيد 5 مليون يهودي. هذا الأمر ماذا يمكن أن يحدث؟ تغير العالم العربي، ماذا يمكن أن يحدث لإسرائيل؟ هذه أو العالم الإسلامي طبعا، هذه مسائل يتم البحث فيها والتحضير لها. لذلك المشاريع الأساسية في إسرائيل في خطة الحسم.
There are many struggles today, but the 2 and most immediate struggles are the settlement expansion in the West Bank and the project to annex the West Bank on the other hand, and the blockade of the Gaza Strip. And thirdly, there remains an Israeli program to effectively reduce the population of Palestine, not only of the West Bank, but even of the Palestinian community within Israel. And the have to understand that Israel is planning on a long-term basis, is identifying objectives that it is seeking to achieve only tens of years down the line, and we have to understand this.
أنا لا أصدق كوشنر ولا جيشهم غريب لا لما قالوا إنه موضوع سيناء مش مطروح وموضوع الأردن الكونفدرالية مش مطروحة. أنا أعرف ومتأكد أنها طرحت على الرئيس أبو مازن موضوع الكونفدرالية، وأصلا أبو مازن صرح بذلك علنا وقال أنه طلب من الأمريكان أن تكون كونفدرالية ثلاثية.
I don't believe either Jared Kushner or Jason Greenblatt when they deny that the idea of a Palestinian or the idea of expanding Gaza into the Sinai Peninsula or of a Palestinian-Jordanian Confederation has not been proposed. Not only do I know it has been proposed, and not only am I certain it has been proposed, but Abu Mazen has publicly confirmed that it has been proposed and in fact said that he responded with a demand for a tripartite confederation, including Israel, and not limited to only Jordan and the Palestinians.
وتوطين الفلسطينيين في سيناء وهو مطروح منذ الخمسينات، يعني ليس لا فكرة جديدة ولا مخطط جديد.
And the resettlement of the Palestinians in Sinai has in fact been proposed since the 50s, and there is nothing new here.
وبالتالي يمكن أن تأخذ الخطة ليس شكل مشروع يورا آيلاند 720 كيلو متر سبنح من سيناء إلى غزة، لا يمكن أن تأخذ أشكال أخرى، مناطق تجارية وصناعية قريبة من غزة يبدأ ينتقل الفلسطينيون إليها شيئا فشيئا، والأمور يعني هناك منظور لعملية طويلة، وليس إذا لم ننتبه لن نستطيع أن نحارب هذه المسألة، لا يكفي أن نقول نرفض أو أنها غير موجودة.
It's not enough to simply deny that something exists. So, for example, regarding the expansion of the Gaza Strip into the Sinai Peninsula, this doesn't necessarily need to take the form, as has been proposed by the Israeli General Yura Island, of annexing 720 square kilometers of Sinai to the Gaza Strip. It can take other forms, for example, of establishing industrial zones and other projects in Sinai, which would remain under Egyptian sovereignty, but which would gradually and inexorably become part of the Gaza Strip to redirect the Gaza Strip towards Sinai.
ولا يكفي كلام كوشنر لطمأنة الأردن، فالأردن وأنا بحكم الجغرافيا يعني خلال خروجي وخلال عودتي يعني أكون في عمان وفي الأردن وأحتك بالأردنيين على كل المستويات. في الأردن في حالة هستيريا وليس مجرد غضب. الملك كل يومين بيقول لن نقبل الضغوط وكل الأردن يبدو تقف على رؤوس أقدامها لأنه بدهم يوطنوا مليونين فلسطيني في الأردن.
Nor should we accept Jared Kushner's reassurances towards Jordan. By circumstance of geography, I leave through Jordan and return through Jordan every time I travel, and I maintain contacts throughout Jordanian society, and I can assure that Jordan today is experiencing a state of hysteria, and the king keeps saying we will refuse and we will reject, but there is a very clear proposal to resettle 1 million to 1.5 million Palestinians within Jordan.
للتوضيح مليون منهم و200,000 موجودين في الأردن already ولا يحصلوا على الجنسية.
Just to be clear, 1 million of these Palestinians to be resettled are already in Jordan, but don't currently have Jordanian citizenship.
هذا كله لا يعني أن المخططات المعادية قدر سينجح.
None of this, of course, means that these proposals are going to succeed and actually be implemented.
هناك إمكانية لإحباطها ولكن يجب توفير مستلزمات إحباطها لن تحبط لوحدها.
All of these proposals can be defeated, but they are not going to defeat themselves. The means to defeat them have to be available.
هناك عناصر قوة كثيرة فلسطينية يجب أن أعرضها أيضا حتى تكون الصورة يعني مكتملة.
Palestinians have many sources of strength, and I would like to itemize these just to round out the picture.
أولاً عدالة القضية وتفوقها الأخلاقي وهذا ذكرت لن أعرض تفاصيل.
As others have pointed out, the justice and moral superiority of the Palestinian cause, and I don't see a need to discuss this further.
الورقة الثانية وهي أهم الأوراق على الإطلاق ولا يمكن مقارنتها بأي شيء هي وجود شعب مستعد لمواصلة النظام. هذا أثبته 102 سنة وليس يوم أو يومين.
And the second, and by far the most important issue, is a people mobilized and prepared to continue the struggle. And this is not something based on what the Palestinians did yesterday or the day before, but based on a history of 102 years.
القضية الفلسطينية قضية فلسطينية وأشدد فلسطينية ذات أبعاد عربية وإسلامية وتحررية إنسانية.
I would like to emphasize that the Palestinian struggle is a Palestinian struggle, but has Arab, Muslim, and indeed global freedom extensions.
إذا طمسنا أو أضعفنا فلسطينيتها سنفقد الكثير من القوة والقدرات.
If we were to water down the Palestinian dimensions of the Palestinian struggle, we would be losing many of the resources, many of the opportunities and resources.
خطأ الرئيس الراحل ياسر عرفات وفتح ليس أنهم أبرزوا الهوية الفلسطينية، أنهم بالغوا في هذا الأمر.
The mistake of Fatah and Yasser Arafat is not that they emphasized the Palestinian identity, but rather that they exaggerated this identity.
ولكن لو الفتح لم تأخذ المبادرة للتركيز على أهمية الدور الفلسطيني الخاص لما قادت الشعب الفلسطيني.
And had they in fact not emphasized this Palestinian identity, the Palestinian revolution would never have begun.
لأنه حركة القوميين العرب كانت تقول للفلسطينيين الوحدة طريق التحرير.
The Arab nationalist movement, for example, used to tell the Palestinians that it is Arab unity that will lead to the liberation.
والجماعات الإسلامية كانت تقول الخلافة طريق التحرير.
And the Islamist movements used to say that it is the establishment of a caliphate that will lead to the liberation.
واليساريين كانوا يقولوا مش مهم التحرير.
And
مهم الصراع الطبقي والتغيير والمعسكر الاشتراكي
And the leftists were in fact saying that liberation is not important. What matters is a class struggle and so on.
فهلا اذا بدنا نبرز البعد الاسلامي ونهمل الابعاد هاي الثانيه انا اعتقد اننا نخطئ خطا كبيرا. بالعكس ميزه حماس والجهاد انهم بداوا يدركوا اهميه البعد الوطني للحركات الاسلاميه ويجب تعزيز هذا البعد وتوطينهم في بلادهم ولعبهم الدور الاساسي في بلادهم وانهم يستطيعون ان يصنعوا في بلادهم.
And therefore, I think if we follow the advice of the Islamist movements and ignore the other dimensions of the struggle, we'd be making a grave mistake. And what has been important about Hamas and Islamic Jihad is that they have emphasized also the nationalist dimensions of their own struggle.
النقطة الثانية وهي في بعض الاختلاف مع زميلي الدكتور صالح، الوحدة الوطنية مش بس ضرورة وبدنا نتخلى عنها. الوحدة الوطنية ضرورة ويجب أن نعمل من أجلها، لكن مش بانتظار أن يتفق الفرقاء. وأنا بشتغل بالوحدة ولكن لم يكن لدي أي وهم بأي فترة من الفترات أننا يجب أن نغير موازين القوى الداخلية حتى تتحقق الوحدة.
And if I may just express a slight disagreement with Dr. Sadeh, I believe strongly in national reconciliation. But I have absolutely no illusions that the two parties concerned are going to achieve this reconciliation. Rather, our objective should be to change the balance of power through which these parties will be compelled to achieve national reconciliation.
Please, Mr. Hill, last point.
بس هذا الموضوع بس. وموضوع الوحدة كمان بيعزز هذا الموضوع إنه إسرائيل ضد الفلسطينيين جميعا. لا تفرق بين فلسطيني واخر بين معتدل ومتطرف، هاي نقطة في منتهى الأهمية بتعمل قاسم مشترك، إذا استخدمنا مثلا النموذج الجزائري ممكن نحقق الوحدة، يعني مش نموذج إنه نطلب تطبيق الاتفاقات وننتظر الفرج، وفي نقطة واحدة مهمة جدا، عندما نرى عناصر تفوق إسرائيل يجب أن نرى عناصر ضعف وأزمات إسرائيل، وهي كثيرة أيضا جدا. إسرائيل هلا مش قادرة تشيل حرب متى أرادت وتحقق ما تريد بسرعة وبعيدا عن همتها الداخلية. هذا متغير مهم.
So these last 2 points, as far as the first point, also what could help achieve Palestinian community is we have to remember that Israel is against all Palestinians. Israel does not distinguish between moderate Palestinians and extremist Palestinians. And finally, yes, we have spoken about Israel's sources of strength, and we should recognize these, but we should also recognize Israel's points of weakness, which are also there and are also evident. For example, Israel can no longer launch wars at will, quick and decisive wars far away from its own borders.
الخلاف اللي داخل الخلافات داخل إسرائيل خلافات لا حدود لها بين من هو اليهودي والعلماني والديني وموقع إسرائيل وعلاقتها باليهود الآخرين وقصص يعني لها أول وليس لها آخر في إسرائيل.
And Israel is today full of contradictions about the definition of who is a Jew, for example, about the relationship between Israel and Jewish communities in the diaspora. There are numerous contradictions in Israeli society.
Thank you.
نقطة ضعف
You will have another 5 minutes later.
تطرفها هذا التطرف يؤلف الناس ضدها في المنطقة وفي العالم. هذا التطرف الشديد سيؤدي إلى يعني هزيمتها إن شاء الله وشكرا.
And finally, we should also recognize Israel's extremism, and its extremism is going to turn not only the region, but also people around the world against it, and that was the final goal.
Thank you so much. Now we have 7 to 10 minutes only, unfortunately, for questions and comments. And then we will have 5 minutes for each speaker to finalize his ideas. Okay? The mic, please.
Thank you. Rami from Jordan. The question to Dr. Hani, if we assume the historic role that the PLO has played in linking the Palestinians together throughout Palestine and outside of Palestine, through its professional unions and student unions, women unions, and so on, and if we assume that the merger between Fatah and the PA has marginalized the PLO and thus minimized the participation of Palestinians inside and outside of Palestine to have more effective roles. And if we see the growth of NGOs and movements that came in to fill the vacuum, like BDS movement, like the Conference of Return that Dr. Salman spoke of yesterday, maybe the One Democratic State initiative that Dr. Ilan spoke of today, can these movements hijack the PLO, bring back the usefulness it had, or is the PLO something from the past that is not going to rise again?
Thank you. Here, Dr. Islam. There. Is there a mic?
Hanan Aroudi from Palestine. In fact, I have very straightforward question. Very simple, very straight. Why we are divided, the Palestinians? Please answer this simple question, because we spoke about so many items. We didn't talk exactly why we are divided. We have a colonialist, imperialist regime that came with a very clear agenda that didn't change. The Zionist strategy in Palestine didn't change since they established their state. Today, the Palestinians, they have managed, unfortunately, to divide on something that didn't change even. The Israelis, the Zionists didn't change their agenda, but we have changed so many times. So why we are divided today? Is it division on the program? Are we divided on the territories? Where is the borders of the state? Are we divided on power? Are we divided in sharing the cake of Oslo? What we are exactly? Because in the street, Palestinians are not divided. The people in the street, they are not divided. We all know what is the enemy. We know what is the relationship with the Israeli Zionists, and we know what they are doing. So we are not. This is first question, excuse me.
So, Dr. Saad.
Dr. Second question, simple question. How people in Gaza are surviving? My God, all what you have presented, it's small genocide that Israel is committed in Gaza. I am shocked to see how Palestinians are suffering there and how they survive day to day. Is it the tunnel channel that keeps them alive? But really, it's very hard to imagine.
Thank you.
Third question. Please,
Thank you.
this is so important. I have to make comment to my friend Hani Masri. It's very important. Otherwise, we have to debate as Palestinians the National Palestinian Program. This is so important. Our core struggle is how to dismantle the Zionism, the Zionist project. It's not territorial. We are not fighting on gaining some territory and then the core struggle is to dismantle this colonialist and it needs a strategy, different strategy and different discourse from the Palestinian side.
Thank you. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi.
From Gaza University or graduated from Gaza University. Yeah, welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi. أنا أنور خالصة من إندونيسيا والحمد لله أشترك في برنامج عن فلسطين في تركي. في الأول في برنامج كلنا مريم والآن هنا في برنامجكم لكن في هذا البرنامج وفي برنامج كلنا مريم لا أحد من إندونيسيا يتكلم لا أعرف كيف لكن نحن في إندونيسيا الحمد لله نفعل أكثر برنامج لفلسطين وأنا أتكلم هنا فقط ممكن دعوة لدكتور هاني هل ممكن تزور إندونيسيا وتتكلم أمام أهل إندونيسيا بالنسبة ما حدث في فلسطين لأن نحن بعيدة منكم طبعا وأنا أيضا أسافر إلى هنا أكثر من 30 ساعة هذا بعيدة وممكن عندما سافرت إلى إندونيسيا وتتكلم إن شاء الله نحن أهل إندونيسيا نعطيكم مساعدة وهذا قد فعلنا نحن كل سنة نرسل مساعدة إلى مؤسسة فلسطينية ممكن ليس فيه محدد فقط نعم إن شاء الله نعم نحن أخوكم في إندونيسيا وإن شاء الله ندعوكم حتى احتلالكم في فلسطين جزاكم الله خيرا.
Thanks for our respected panelists for their informative talks. I have a straight question to Mr. Hani for recognizing the one of our problems that we are facing in Palestine, which is the division between Fatah and Hamas. So what's like he mentioned that the one of the ways to dismantle this division to reconcile between the two parts of the remaining parts of Palestine is to take to take the power out of these two main parties of the division. So what's the examples? What's the things that we should do to dismantle their power so they can reconcile?
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
السلام عليكم. I will speak in Arabic, it's better for me. حقيقة أنا بدي ألتزم بالعنوان تبع الورشة مستقبل الحركة الوطنية في الإقليم المتغير وحقيقة بالعودة للدكتور صالح حقيقة الجزئية التاريخية التي ذكرت عن فكرة أن إسرائيل تحاول أن تنشئ جسما آخر موازيا لمنظمة التحرير الحقيقة وأنا كنت جزءا من هذه الفترة الزمنية هي المشكلة الحقيقية في داخل منظمة التحرير التي كانت لا تقبل وجود الآخر والوجود الآخر كان منافسا وطنيا أو منافسا إسلاميا أو كما شاء. أنا بعتقد أنه كان بالإمكان من حضرتكم وأنا ابن الضفة الغربية ومدينة القدس أن نتكلم أكثر عن الواقع السياسي في الضفة الغربية وليس فقط القمع وإنما أيضا المشهد الوطني ماذا يحدث في الضفة الغربية وطنيا إن بقي وطنيا وشكرا لك.
Thank you so much. Sorry.
My name is Blake. This question is for Dr. Hani. You said that you think it's premature to have a discussion about the two-state, one-state choice to be made. And I suppose you meant between two states and one democratic state, and not the state that exists right now. But I would like to ask you why you think that it is not yet time to discuss this.
Thank you. Okay, and then the last question. Unfortunately, there's no time.
اسمي يونس من المغرب. اسمحوا لي أن أطرح هذا السؤال باللغة العربية. فقط أريد أن أعرف ما هو رأيكم في ما يسمى بحلف الدول الأربعة، حلف قمار القاهرة، أبو ظبي، نعم، وهو 4 دول الآن تجاهر بتطبيع وتدفع نحو إشهاد القضية الفلسطينية. ما هو رأيكم في هذه ال4 دول؟ شكرا.
تمام، السؤال هنا والسؤال الأخير.
Quickly, Assalamu alaikum. I would like to know what exactly clearly prevent the Palestinians to organize elections. I mean, the division, political division, you have it everywhere. So you just put your proposal, put your program on the table to the Palestinian people, and they will choose. They will choose. So what prevent us? What prevent us? I mean, what prevent the Palestinian people to organize election and to let the Palestinian people choose? And when it comes to one state to state, we don't care. I mean, I'm not sure that people care. They care about their rights. I mean, even if they have 10 state solution. I mean, if it make it happen to the people to get their rights,
okay.
Why not?
Thank you. The last question. And after the last.
سأتحدث باللغة العربية إن أمكن، ولكن يعني فرصة وجود مجموعة من الضيوف ذوي خلفية أكاديمية تحدثوا بالسياسة لتوجيه هذه ملاحظة بهذا الاتجاه. يعني ولا مرة تم النظر إلى قطاع غزة بتناول قضية قطاع غزة لأنها كانت محور أنه هناك جهد انفصالي في قطاع غزة أو بتناول قطاع غزة كما سار. ولا مرة تم تناول قطاع غزة كسياق تحرر وطني أو كجزء من سياق تحرر وطني أو جزء من المشروع الوطني الفلسطيني الذي قام. حاليا ما نسمع هناك أطروحتين، أطروحة المأساة الإنسانية أو أطروحة الشرذمة المتمردة أو ما شابه أو حيز تمرد. في هذه السياقات التي يغيب عنها الفكرة التحررية أو إمكانية النظر إلى غزة كفرصة لكل الفلسطينيين، يتم تناول غزة مجددا وبشكل بنوع من التعميم الذي يحضر بالأكاديمية الفلسطينية وبالسياسة الفلسطينية حتى لدى حركات المقاومة تستبطن هذا التعميم الذي تطلقه السلطة الاستعمارية وتجبر السلطة الفلسطينية على تبنيه، لنقل أنها تجبرها، ولكن حتى حركات المقاومة لا تستبطن أو تظهر تناول لقطاع غزة كفرصة تحررية. حينما نتحدث عن القطاع كفرصة تمام. السؤال لماذا يغيب هذا الجهد البحثي؟ السؤال للدكتور هاني والدكتور صالح. أنا بعرف أن الجامعات الفلسطينية ولا مرة تتكلم عن قطاع غزة كأرض محررة، بالعكس كل طالب بوصف غزة كأرض محررة يدافع على ذلك في أكاديميتنا الفلسطينية أو يغيب الأمر تماما في جهد مراكز الأبحاث.
شكرا جزيلا. نختم بالسؤال ما بعد الأخير للدكتور آخر.
Very good question that was not actually provoked by the question before, although I see a very important viewpoint there. My question actually to Dr. Abdel-Al. I was very intrigued by the way you periodize Gaza. So, because the reason I'm saying this is, and actually in my own work, when I think about Gaza and so on, I think about 2008, 2009. I mean, definitely the elections in 2006. But 2008, 2009, the Israeli wars about Gaza and how they actually shift the ways in which we think, and I'm saying we outside of Palestine, we think about Gaza 2008, 2012, 2014. I mean, this is, and when you did it, you actually did not mention that. So I'm just wondering if this is something that is it something, a function of where we are placed in our locations, or is it something that you wanted to discuss something different, or is something we should discuss outside afterwards? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Exactly 5 minutes, unfortunately, everyone. Because, no, each one 5 minutes. We will start from seven.
طبعا أسئلة بدها أكثر من المداخلة ولكن نحاول بقول أسئلة بدها يعني أكثر من المداخلة.
لحظة أستاذ الترجمة دكتور. خليه معيد.
لا خليه
نبدأ هنا.
بس 5 دقائق.
إذا ممكن
بقول انه هل المنظمة اصبحت خلص من الماضي يجب ان نتخلى عنها ام يجب ان نحاول يعني اصلاحها؟ انا من وجهة نظري هي بحاجة الى اكثر من الاصلاح.
Should we simply consign the PLO to the past or seek to reform and rejuvenate it? I think it requires more than just reform.
احنا اقترحنا اقتراحات مفصلة بكتاب لكيفية إعادة بناء مؤسسات منظمة التحرير.
We in fact published a book with detailed proposals on the reconstruction of the PLO and its institutions.
وهذا كان مش جهد فردي، كان جهد شارك فيه عشرات الأكاديميين والمفكرين والسياسيين من مختلف الفصائل بما فيهم فتح وحماس.
And this was in fact based on a very widespread effort from academics and intellectuals and political actors from across the spectrum, including both Fatah and Hamas.
عشان ما فيش وقت بحيلكم على موقع مركز مسارات للاطلاع على هذا الكتاب.
And rather than getting into it now, in the interest of time, I would refer you to our website, Masarat, where you can find this publication.
السؤال الثاني: لماذا نحن منقسمين وكيف يمكن إنهاء الانقسام؟
Second question: why is there a schism, and how can we achieve reconciliation?
في عدة أسباب إلى الانقسام، منها داخلي ومنها خارجي. أيضا في وثيقة الوحدة الوطنية اللي شارك في إقرارها أكثر من 700 فلسطيني مطروح أسباب الانقسام وكيفية معالجة الانقسام. يعني لأنه ما بقدرش أختصرها بدقيقة، في أسباب كثيرة، ولكن بيهمني أحكي عن سبب مهم هو الصراع على السلطة. هذا جزء من أسباب الانقسام، في خلاف حول البرامج، وفي خلافات، وفي دور إسرائيلي، وفي دور أمريكي، وفي دور عربي، ولكن أخطأت حماس بأنها دخلت سلطة قبل ما تضمن أن هذه السلطة ستكون مختلفة، وبالتالي الجمع بين السلطة والمقاومة المسلحة عملية مستحيلة في الظروف الفلسطينية. وهذا بيقودني إلى سؤال ثاني حول موضوع غزة.
There are numerous reasons for the schism. There are internal reasons and external reasons. There are Palestinian reasons, Arab reasons, and international reasons. And here again, I would refer you to our website, which has a document signed by over 700 people from across the political spectrum. But I would just like to pinpoint one cause, and that is the struggle for authority, or rather the struggle for power within the Palestinian Authority. And here I would simply point out that Hamas made a mistake by entering the Palestinian Authority without first reaching agreement on the character of this authority, and its supposition that it could combine resistance with participation in the Palestinian Authority in its present form was an erroneous assumption.
وهذا بعيدني لنقطة غزة، هل هي محررة أم لا؟ ما يجري في غزة صمود وبطولة وليس مجرد مأساة، ولكن الحديث أن غزة محررة يتناقض مع الواقع. بحكم القانون الدولي لا تزال غزة تحت الاحتلال. هناك انتزعنا بعض المكاسب بحرية الحركة داخل قطاع غزة، ولكن غزة محاصرة، غزة بتتعرض للعدوان والتهديد بالعدوان، بالتالي مش لازم يا طخه يا اكسر مخه، يا اما محررة او مش محررة، في حالة بين الحالتين يعني.
And regarding the question of whether Gaza is liberated or occupied, I would point out that under international law, Gaza is still considered an occupied territory. And in addition to the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, there is also steadfastness and bravery. And yes, there is now greater freedom of movement within Gaza, but Gaza is also under siege from outside. And I don't think it's simply a black and white question of whether it's occupied or liberated. There are also a gray zone in between, which is where I think that Gaza is currently located.
حاول لخص
هلا برقية يبدو يعني يا اما انا اسأت التعبير عن نفسي او المعين ما ترجمش. انا ما قلت انه مش وقت النقاش دولة دولتين، بقول مش هنا الموضوع، ومش النقاش يجب ان يكون بدناش نعمل معسكرين، معسكر الدولتين ومعسكر الدولة الواحدة، والموضوع كيف نتصارع جميعا هلا لحماية القضية، لحماية تواجد الشعب الفلسطيني حق فلسطين، لإحباط المخططات المعادية، وليس يعني نعمل معسكرتين مثل معسكري الرفض والقبول.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so it was a mistake in my translation. Hani was not saying that this is not the time to have a debate over one or two states. He's saying that is not the issue. The real issue is how to unify advocates of one state with advocates of two states to confront the immediate challenges that are facing Palestinian people, such as the annexation of the West Bank and further
عبارتين بس الله يخليك. بالنسبة لحنان أنا موافق مع كلمة هزيمة وتفكيك المشروع الصهيوني ونظام الامتيازات العنصري، واللي بقول دولة واحدة على هذا الأساس ما عندي مشكلة، لكن إنه ندخل تحت إسرائيل ونكون وإحنا مش مقبولين أصلا كمان، يعني لن يضموا السكان، يريدوا أن يتخلصوا من السكان، هناك سيادة لدولة واحدة وليس دولة واحدة.
So, just in response to Hanan's question, the one-state solution without racial discrimination and so on, that I have no problem with. What I do object to is the idea of the current state being a one-state because it doesn't want the Palestinians to be part of the state.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, thank you. It's an example how difficult it is to control the Palestinian or to coordinate Palestinians.
Okay. I will tackle first of all the question of elections. I agree with, the question. I think the only solution for the Palestinians in the occupied territories is actually the election. It's very important, but as all of you know, and we don't have, as Hani said, precondition for this. We have illegitimate government since president since 2009. He finished his constitutional status since that time, and we are working on presidential ordinance, and this is not a healthy way. The only way to try to get out of the impasse today, the predicament, is the election. The second thing about the constitution, how Israel opted for the creation of a parallel body to the PLO. First of all, I will agree with you, this is on part because, this is internally happened because of the inefficiency of the PLO, first of all. And this is nothing to do with Hamas itself. This is an Israeli option. Doesn't mean that Hamas was part of this strategy. This is another part, okay? Now, about Gaza as a liberated area, of course, I mean, in a way, as Hani said, we are proud of Gaza, people of Gaza, and the resistance in Gaza. But still, we can't talk about liberated area. This is not how we think a liberated area should be. I mean, people are living in a jail. Gaza is maybe also the West Bank. We live in a jail, but the situation in Gaza is harsher many times than the West Bank. So I mean, we will talk about Gaza as a liberated area when they have really freedom. Okay. That's it.
Thank you so much. Right.
How the Palestinians in Gaza survive? Well, it's Gaza way. I mean, there are people help each other usually. There are lots of takaful between people in Gaza, and also there is still some sort of freedom for the international NGOs that bring to Gaza some aid in different sectors. So, but people struggle to survive in Gaza. It's not easy, but I mean, it's Gaza, like you know. Why I did divide the period? I wanted to explain the context actually of the current situation, without mentioning this important transformation that Gaza witnessed over this last 13 years. Probably people that out of Gaza, it's not easy to understand the context itself. Just I wanted to explain the context. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very inspiring and heated discussion sometimes. Please give the presenters our round of applause. I'm going to try to give you some mementos if people are in the back. Meanwhile, I just want to remind people we're going to lunch right after, and then we're going to reconvene at 3 o'clock to discuss the struggle for Palestine empowerment strategies, where there will be several presentations on the role of women, the role of the youth, role of the media strategy, empowering voices, as well as the international solidarity movement. So this is going to be very inspiring afternoon. I hope for all of us to come back and listen to this presentation and also contribute.
لا أنا مو ما في غير أنا والأخوة وأكل ساعتي بس إنك لا ما مرة بالله والله زمان شانتي